Hey there, welcome back to a new tutorial on Unity. I'm gonna be continuing along with the tutorial that we were just looking at in the past series. And the last tutorial we actually saw how to create behaviors on time. If you remember the script, I have it actually here. And we had something like send a message, right? Send a message, move to our class the cube here, and this guy had a cube behavior, right? It's just that I was doing some changes here. So we have the cube behavior here, and we have a function move, right? This is living inside the cube, and we're doing that over time, right? So we're doing that in 10 frames or so. So that's fine. We could actually make this function slightly more interesting. Say transform, rotate, and transform dot position dot x plus equals 0.1. So let's see what we have so far. Just make sure that if we're calling such behavior with the button move, right? So if you remember, we have an inventory for creating, or something like an inventory really. It's not really an inventory, but cubes. So we press C, we create those cubes, right? And if we change our behavior to move, you see we can create these behaviors of moving over time, moving and rotating in this case. And because these guys have rigid bodies associated to them, they do that and then they stop, right? Let's make that slightly longer time. We could say maybe 50, right? So 50 frames. Again, if you see the tutorial before, we could do that with time, or in this case with frames, right? I'm gonna just leave it like this. What I want to try to do in this tutorial is something that I was asked to. Is like, what if you could, in a way, select, like activate the behavior of a bunch of cubes at the same time. Let's say select 1, 2, 3, 4, and then basically trigger their behavior simultaneously, right? So I thought that was pretty fun. So that's what we're going to try to do here. So we're going to start by saying we're going to create a variable called selected cubes, right? And this is going to be a new array, right? So this is going to be a collection, right? So we could go and search into the reference for arrays. There's different versions of how to do them, like you can read this stuff here. So if you see, this is a way of adding an element to an array. That's the way we're declaring it, and then we can get information like the length or just describing what it's inside the array, right? So that's good. So we have an array. Let's put some comment, define array. So the second thing I want to do is here, once we kind of raycast, right? So we're kind of clicking, raycasting, and then if the tag of such object is cube, right? We might be able to add the cube into the array, right? So we could say selected cubes dot push. Oops. Dot push, right? And we're gonna push inside the array what? We're gonna push the heat dot transform dot game object, right? So we're gonna add that object to the array. So that's all good. We have the object selected. Let's cancel, like comment out this kind of line here, because I don't want to call the behavior right away, right? The other thing I'm going to do here, it's in the print function, I mean in the update, I'm going to print the size of the array. So I'm going to say something like number of cubes in array and plus dot length, right? Is that the way you do it? I'm not sure. Let's check the documentation. Dot length, right? So it should be fine. So this should be printing every frame, basically 0 to start with, because we're starting with the number of cubes inside the array list. Oh, sorry, the array. It's 0, and then once we click on one object. So let's see if that works. So you see that we have this message here saying number of cubes in the array 0, and then if we create some cubes, we could click on this guy and then we have 1 cube in the array. The problem with this system is that at this point we are, if I click twice on the same cube or 3 times or 4 and so on, I can keep on adding the same object to the array, right? So it's working, but we want to be able to somehow avoid having 2 objects inside the array that are the same object, right? So the second thing that I'm going to do here is just I'm going to go and create a custom tab. So my cube right now has a tag called cube, and I went ahead and created a new tag that it's called cube in array, right? So just if you don't have that, add that tag. So I'm going to use that tag, cube in array. So make sure that your cube still stays in the cube tag, but what we're going to do is say hit.transform.gameObject, or actually we could say just hit.transform.tag equals cube in array, right? So basically this will switch the tag of the object in a way that this if statement won't affect it anymore. So basically once you add it to the array, you won't be able to add it again, right? Let's check that that's the case. So create cubes, create, there we go. So adding, we have 1 object in the array, and if I click on that guy again, I can click again and again, and it's not in the array anymore, right? So we can only add a new member. Any guy that has the tag cube could become part of the array, but they cannot be part of the array twice, right? So that's great. We have our collection of cubes in the array, right? So now what we need is basically I'm gonna just get out of all this kind of basically all these if statements, all the array casting and everything. So just make sure that you're outside of this block, and we're gonna start doing something with those cubes, right? So for instance, something that we could do for fun, it's for variable c from the type gameObject, in selected cubes. So that's our array. So this is a way of looping through the objects inside the array, right? So what can we do with those? We could just say, well, c.renderer.material.color equals color. So in this way we would just color red the guys in the array, right? So let's see if that works as a way of looping. So what this is saying, like it's saying call C, or like any name, right? A game object that it's inside this selected cubes array, right? So this is a for loop that loops through every element inside an array, right? So if you don't know that structure, oops. So let's create some of those. If I click on that, you see that works, right? There we go. And so we have a way of looping through the objects in the array, right? There's another way of just looping through objects that are with a specific tag, right? So For instance, if I want to get rid of the selection, right? So if I want to clear the array, I could say selected cubes dot clear, right? And in the array, it's going to be deleted, right? So if let's use a keys command. So if input dot get key down, if that key is something like, I don't know, v, sorry, there we go, we would say selected cubes dot clear, right? The problem here is that if we clear the array, is it cleared like that? Let's see, should be fine, right? So let's see what we have here. So we create the cubes, we can create a few, and now just look at the number of objects in the array. I'm gonna press V, and you see it went to 0, but somehow the objects are still red, right? So what I would want to happen at this point is that the objects go back to white, right? Just to kind of this selection mode. So that's fine, I can select the array, but what I'm gonna do is there's a nice line of code that you could search for, that it's objects with tag. Find game objects with tag. That's the one I'm looking for, right? And if you find that, it's pretty straightforward. It would just kind of call any object that has a specific tag, right? So we could say something like, let's just copy that. So we could say something like variable all cubes equals find game objects with tag cube, right? And then we can use this same structure to loop through those, because that's going to return us the array of the normal cubes, not the so I'm going to call these CU, doesn't matter, in all cubes, right? So I'm going to loop through all the cubes that have the tag cube, and I'm going to make sure that the render color is white, 111 being white, right? So if you think of what we're doing, is just making sure that everything's white. If we press the button, these ones get, the array list gets clear, and then only the selected ones get red, right? So let's see, let's save this and see if it works. So cubes, let's create some cubes. So we can select a few of those, right? And that's all good. And if I press V now, well, they are still red. So let's see what's going on. Right. What happened here is that once we press V, we not only need to clear the array, but we need to make the cubes go back to the tag cube, right? So what we could do here is when we press V, is loop through the objects right? So copy that structure here inside and say c dot tag equal cube. I'm sure there's several ways of doing this, but if what I'm saying is, like, if you press V, every cube that was in the array will get back its old tag, the tag cube where they're kind of deselected. That will make them become white again, right? So let's see if that's the case. So creating some cubes. So here we go. Selecting a few of those and then pressing V, and still having them in red. So what is the problem here? Let's see. All right. We cleared the array before, so this loop actually doesn't take effect. So we have to just put this line just after this one. So first of all, we pick all those cubes, we change their tag, and then we clear the array. Very straightforward. So this time, hopefully, it's gonna work. So let's select a few. I'm gonna press V. Oh, and there we go. Right. So we have a way of selecting objects, and then pressing V, and selecting a few others, and pressing V. So we clear selection. So that's great. I mean, this is kind of very explicitly showing us which is the selection with the color. And now you could basically write the similar functions that we have here, like all this stuff, right? You could cut it, right? And let's put it somewhere. So let's create a trigger, right? So if a key down, so if we press a key like R, right? So this is gonna, or T, let's say T for trigger. If we press T, we will check in which behavior we have, right? So we're gonna cut this stuff here. And depending on the behavior, let's start by the simple one. In this time, we're not going to just call destroy, but we're going to call, we're going to loop through the objects in the array, right? So this is the structure for looping through the objects in the array. So if the behavior is destroy, let's say loop through everything and destroy C. Right, C, it's going to be the game object, right? So this is the behavior destroy, right? So let's remove that. That's the first one. Let's see if it works. So cube, I'm going to put behavior destroy, so I'm going to create some objects. So now I can just select a bunch of those. And if I press T for trigger, I kill them. And I could select, right, so we have to do something else, and we are basically we're selecting the objects, and at the same time we have to say selected cubes clear the array, right? So once we finish that loop, we clear the array, because we cannot just keep on calling that that function destroy to these objects that don't exist anymore, right? So that should be better. Let's see. So let's create some objects. Nice. Behavior destroy, T destroyed, and I can keep on adding destroy, right? So this is quite well. Yep. So let's call the other message, which is send message, right? So we're gonna select loop through every object again. And this time we're gonna say C dot send message, and we're gonna send the message move, which is the same message that we've sent in the past tutorial, right? So make sure to check that one first. And so hopefully this will work. So we're gonna send the message of moving and rotating, which is kind of the behavior that we built. So I'm gonna put move tool. So create a few, and then let's select some of this, and I can click T for trigger, and there we go. So we basically, if I press T, we have this kind of marching cubes. Right, so if I press V now, I can deselect, and I can just select a few others and then make a race between those, or add to selection by clicking and maybe removing everything from the selection and then going back to this tool, or creating more cubes, you know. And if you're consistent about like the way you're kind of storing this information in the array and making sure that every behavior starts kind of keeping track of what you're doing, and you don't have errors and mistakes, you should have a very kind of fun playground where you could start really building behaviors and activating them like locally by just going in and saying, okay, you are going to be a rotating cube while you are going to be maybe something else, right? And then just playing the animation and seeing what happens, right? So you can see that you can just have those guys. I'm pressing T several times, and while I'm moving with my first person controller just to seek, and you can see that I'm just sending them out of the screen. And that's it. I'll see you guys soon, and I'm going to be showing the next one how to do animations and how to control those with the scripts as well. See you.